Greetings, this is your brother Marcus Sankofa-Nix here with another fabulous episode of the History Heals Talk series. This is episode 2, and as always, we're going to keep continuing to provide thought-provoking, therapeutic-based discussion and conversation for the collective and for the community. I've been delighted to have some wonderful discussions and conversations, and we are going to continue in that same vein, in that same spirit for this evening. So sit back, relax, enjoy. Make sure that you like and subscribe what we have going on. You can hop on YouTube, History Heals Consulting. That's the page. You can hop on Facebook, History Heals Consulting, or Marcus Sankofa-Nix. Either one of those platforms or avenues or ways you can connect with what's being done, the work, the shows. You could also go to Instagram, hashtag @HistoryHeals, and see also what's going on there. You can hop on LinkedIn, Marcus Sankofa-Nix. And let me also say you can hop on our website, historyhealsconsulting.com. And History Heals Consulting is a business entity using Black history, African-American culture, and history as a vehicle to support educational spaces, various communities, nonprofits, organizations, grassroots organizations, and so on and so forth, with using history as a vehicle and a lens to empower the community and to foster spaces of inclusivity. And that's very critical and very important. And the guest that we have for today is a brother who was doing some impactful work in the community. He's been doing some impactful work in the community for a long time. And with us seeing the executive orders and seeing the attacks on DEI and things being banned and blocked and restricted, Black history continuing to be pushed to the margins, history will reveal to us and will convey to us that this is nothing new for Black folk. This is nothing new for African folk, African American folk. We are definitely not beyond experiencing anti-literacy laws, and we're definitely not beyond experiencing criminalization of education and many other forms of trauma that we've experienced. Yet we are still standing, yet we are still here. So this by any means is not a time to panic, but it's a time for us to be able to look at the past and be able to bring forward in 2025 some of those relevant lessons, those relevant teachings, those tidbits of wisdom that our ancestors have brought forth today. And we're going to spend time focusing today, especially with the concept and topic of mathematics. And so to get right into it, without further delay, I'm honored to have a dear brother who I've been checking out his work. We've connected even in the community various times. I happen to know this brother's beloved Baba and father, who's also doing some great work in the community. But we have Akil Parker with us today, representing all this math. And before we get into the conversation, before we chop it up, before we have a dialogue, wanted to get into the bio that this brother has shared with me, just so those tuning in can know the impact that this brother is having in the community. So Akil Parker is the founder and CEO of All This Math LLC, an educational services company aimed at drastically improving the relationship between mathematics and the Black community. The company offers math tutoring as well as educational consulting and professional development for schools. All This Math also maintains a free YouTube channel where viewers can get simplified math instruction infused with Black history and culture. We're going to talk about what that infusion looks like, how we make that connection and make it relevant soon. So stay tuned. This brother here is an author. He has produced the work of How to Use All This Math Volume 1, published in 2023, a guidebook instructing parents and guardians in how to use everyday activities to develop arithmetic and algebra skills. This brother here was raised in Baltimore, having attended Roland Park Elementary and Middle School and Polytechnic Institute. And this brother here is a professor, a math professor at the Cheney University, and has also taught high school math for 19 years throughout Philadelphia. So this brother here, he and I share some common themes in terms of us also being professors, institutions of higher ed, also being in the secondary space in high school, educating and teaching. But yet I'm glad to have this brother Akil with us. Brother Parker, brother Akil, welcome to the History Heals Talk series. How you feeling, good brother? Glad you could be part of what we're doing today.
I'm glad to be here, man. Oh, and one thing, my pop said to give him a call. Give him a call. He wants to collab on some stuff.
Cool. We'll definitely do that. Definitely do that.
Make sure and tell you.
Shout out to Pops. Definitely appreciate that, and I'll be sure to reach out to him and everything. So when we talk about math, and math is critical. I mean, there's so much that we can say about math. And I know we're kindred spirits, brother Akil. You know, we're definitely lovers of history, especially history that derives from African people, that Africanity. I'm thinking about Imhotep. I'm thinking about Katherine Johnson. I'm thinking about Benjamin Banneker. I'm thinking about all of those who were mathematical geniuses, mathematicians who invented things, who incorporated science and technology and astronomy and arts and all these different elements to be able to serve the community and make what we inherited a better place. However, brother Akil, as we were talking the other day, math is something that it can produce trauma for our young folk. It can produce trauma for young folk who then become parents and then perhaps have stigma and certain type of memories that has been fostered with it. Math is a delicate topic. And, you know, I've worked with students of all ages and have seen the impact of math in terms of it being a challenge, math being something that has even fostered anxiety in terms of how we approach it and how we deal with it. So, brother, we need you, brother. We need you. We need all this math. So first and foremost, tell us about the work you do and tell us how you got into this work. And just tell us in the field from your experience and from your background why you feel this is even necessary. So tell us about the work you do, how you got into it, and why this is even important for us to really deal with right now.
So the main mission of the work that I do and the work that we do with All This Math is really to kind of reorient ourselves toward mathematics and improve the relationship between mathematics generally and the Black community, right? Okay. And part of that really involves, you know, redefining mathematics for our people. Because a lot of times when people hear the word math, like you mentioned, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of discomfort, you know, some trauma might be, you know, recalled. But when we think about mathematics, what it really is beyond like the abstract, like equations and addition problems and subtraction and other types of arithmetic problems, it's really a system of problem solving, right? It's really problem solving practice, right? So we should begin to think about mathematics if we aren't already, in terms of problem solving practice. And then when you think about it in terms of being a human being, right, with agency, living in the world, right, we will always have problems. There will always, inevitably, at some point, there's going to be a problem we're confronted with. There's going to be some type of
Absolutely.
conflict we're going to have, right? Which is not necessarily an unhealthy thing or an issue in and of itself. The problem becomes when we don't know how to identify the problem and we don't know how to solve the problem,
Okay.
right? So math on the one hand is also a system for problem solving. It trains us in how to solve problems and identify problems. Simultaneously, it enables us to develop our critical thinking ability, right? Which is
Sure.
definitely needed, right? So again, to the people that may say and probably have already said sometime in their life, I'm never going to need the Pythagorean theorem, so-called Pythagorean theorem, because Pythagoras studied in ancient Kemet. We should understand they studied
Yes,
from our
sir.
ancestors, right?
Absolutely.
Europeans are just they do a very good job of marketing and taking credit for things, right? Which, I'm not mad at that. Let them do what they do. But, it's important for us to understand what we have done, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
People say, I'm never going to use the quadratic formula. I'm never going to use y equals mx plus b, right? First of all, that's untrue. You use y equals mx plus b all the time. You just don't know it. That's on the one hand. But I also want to say, like, we have to stop being so superficial in terms of our assessments of everything, really, right? You got to stop being so surface level, right? When you're sitting in the classroom using those formulas, using those methods, using those processes, what you're actually doing is you're developing yourself and training your brain in terms of how to input, how to recognize information, input information, how to solve problems, and how to think in a critical way, which is a transferable skill that's applicable any time in any place in life, right?
Mm.
So whenever you have any type of problem, when you're a grown man, grown woman, you got a problem with your husband, your wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, baby mom, baby dad, supervisor at your job, somebody in traffic, a police officer, and you worried, okay, how do I diffuse the situation? I don't get shot by this cop, right? All of these are situations where you have to know how to handle yourself, and we have to know how to think critically and solve a problem, right?
Absolutely.
Doing these math problems, when you're sitting in that high school geometry class, or you're sitting in that high school algebra 1 class, algebra 2 class, or that middle school pre-algebra or algebra 1 class, right? If you're fortunate enough to take algebra 1 in middle school, right? It's developing your thinking ability, right? That's what it's doing. It's developing your thinking ability. Now, for a lot of us, that thinking ability doesn't get developed because you may have had a math teacher that didn't really themselves really understand the depth and the importance of mathematics. So maybe they never had that explicit conversation with you when you were a student. And or maybe you're a student that just checked out and said, you know what? I don't like this. This makes me uncomfortable. It's too difficult. I don't think black people do math. I don't think this is for us. So I'm just not even going to try. So you then don't end up developing that skill set. In addition to analytical reasoning ability, right? So you got problem solving ability, which is being developed when you're doing mathematics. You got critical thinking ability, which is being developed when you're practicing mathematics. Analytical reasoning ability, which is being developed when you're doing mathematics. So when we start to think about these things, and then when you talk about like history and like media literacy and analyzing and assessing different things that people say in the mainstream or things that people write, these are all skills that we need in order to be better students and better at just understanding information that we're constantly bombarded with. So in many ways, like one of the things I often say is that all roads lead to mathematics, because
Mm.
the math is really is an excellent training ground for developing our ability to think.
Mm.
But not only that, we got to know how to figure stuff out.
Mm.
Like there's so many grown men and women among us that just don't know how to figure stuff out. And
Okay.
then you couple that with a kind of current environment that we live in, where we have this like over reliance on technology, advanced technology, iPhones, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Then it's like, oh well, you know what? I don't need to think. I don't have to know how to think because I could just ask Chat GPT. I can ask Open AI. I can ask Siri. I can ask Alexa, and people really feel comfortable with that. And then at the end of the day, you're a grown man or grown woman that don't know how to figure something out. You have to know how to figure things out. And then what compounds the problem is grown men and grown women with children, fathers and mothers, uncles and aunts, grandparents don't know how to figure stuff out. So then how are you going to help those children learn how to figure things out? We got to model that behavior, right? So what I say is it all goes back to mathematics, right?
Got
When
you.
you're doing the math, when you're struggling through the math, and any educator will tell you, there's a term we like to throw around a lot. It's called productive struggle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're a child, you sit in that math class and it's not easy. It ain't supposed to be easy. That's life. Like you're supposed to be challenged. You're supposed to be a little stressed, right? Right. So you, but you have to have a method to learn how to do the problems. It's gonna be rough, right? Especially if it's first introduced to you. You never seen it before. You're not expected to know how to do it, right? So you're gonna have to like fight through it, basically. You know, that's just part for the course. So, but what a lot of people do is they check out and they say, "Look, this is difficult, so I'm not even going to try to do it." Right? That's when you're supposed to like lean in and lock in and try to really go hard at it, right? Because that's it just is what it is. It's supposed to be that. But another reason for that, of course, we know is there's always this negative propaganda around mathematics, right? This idea that math is too difficult, or this idea that you have to be born with a math gene, or you're not a math person, right? For one, to be a math person, this is what's required of you. You need to be a person, and you need to do math. And we do math all the time.
Right.
Everybody's a math person. Every functioning human being is a math person, right? We got to start to like disabuse ourselves of buying into all this negative propaganda around mathematics. Because what it does is when we start to internalize those ideas as adults, we spread it to our children, and it becomes intergenerational. It's like an intergenerational. I call it an intergenerational mathematical poverty.
Well, you know what? So brother Akil, we gonna break this thing down today, my brother. And so I just wanted to get in there and say, you coming with some heavy stuff. You coming with some heavy stuff. Shout out to brother Bannister who tuned in. My man Jai, shout out to him who is behind the scenes making us look good and sound good. Shout out to him. Facts. He's giving you affirmations and is saying he likes your point of view. So let me say this. Ashe Academy, peace to everybody tuning in. Much love to y'all. Thanks for tuning in. So let me say this, brother Akil. So we gonna go deep in this today. So you said a lot of stuff, and one of the things I'm thinking about is an African-centered perspective that would suggest everything is connected. Everything is holistic. You said all roads lead to math. I'm thinking about Benjamin Banneker, for example, one of our many historic ancestor mathematicians, a math genius who was local. He was from around here, Baltimore County, Oella, did his thing. The nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Look, his blueprint is all over the structure and how it was even set up and devised. But what I'm getting at is, in order for him to do the things that he did it, he dealt with numbers and math, and he critically thought, he problem solved, productive struggle. I'm definitely digging that. But he incorporated science, he incorporated astronomy, the almanac, he incorporated biology. He incorporated he incorporated so many things. So my first question, or my next question for you, brother Akil, is how can we reintroduce math in a way where we're introducing it in a way where we can make it relevant? We can have the students who are trying to get this, they're connecting with this. And I want to hear, this is histomatics, so there's a hist connected to the math, to the math. So how do we approach it in that standpoint to make it more applicable, more relevant, and to make the student connect with it more, if that makes sense? How do we do that? What would you say to that, good brother?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, one of the things we have to do is we have to make the math instruction more application based.
Okay.
Which means we got to get into the word problems.
Okay.
And that becomes the catch-22, because like when people ask the question, when am I going to use this stuff? Or like, how is this relevant? The relevancy is there. The relevancy is in a lot of the textbooks, even if they're Eurocentric textbooks, even if they're culturally irrelevant textbooks, but it's in the word problems. The challenge becomes a lot of times, a lot of teachers don't get into the word problems for a lot of reasons. Some of the teachers are uncomfortable with word problems themselves. Some of the teachers have students that have some reading comprehension issues, and it might be more difficult to deal with the word problems. Also, a lot of times teachers are under, stress from their scope and sequence, and they're on a time crunch. So they may teach the technical aspects. Or what one of my good brother down in Carolina that teaches, Dana Harris, calls them naked math word problems. But it's just a straight equation. Boom, we're gonna go over these. I'm gonna teach you how to solve all these equations. Boom, 3x plus 5 equals 20. But when it gets to, but we might not have time for me to give you the word problem that you have to know how to read, decode, understand, and then translate into 3x plus 5 equals 20 and then solve. We may not have time for that, right? So we got to get into the word problems, right? We got to be very aggressive with getting into the word problems. Furthermore, what we got to do is we got to know our students. We got to know these young people. And even whether it's in a formal school setting, we got to know our students, or whether it's just parents dealing with their children. You got to know your children. We got to know the young people in the community, on the block, around the way. We got to know what their interests are. And then we have to be competent in the mathematics and the algebra, the pre-calculus, the trig, the geometry, so that we can then say, okay, boom, you enjoy doing this. Let me teach you this skill within this mathematical subject that connects directly to this thing that you care about, directly to this thing that you like, right? So I can show you how it makes sense. And then this ties into the culturally irrelevant textbooks or the culturally irrelevant curriculum. What we have to understand is that a lot of times, some of us that, are a little more conscious or have a little more political and cultural awareness, sometimes as a young person or even as an adult, we tend to use that as a rationale to say, nah, I ain't doing all that, man. That's that white man stuff. I don't care about all that. But we got to understand that it's a framework, right? So we could take the culturally irrelevant examples, use those as a tool for learning. And it's kind of like the frame that you buy from the store. When you buy the frame from the store, it's got the stock photo inside of it. But when you get home, you open up the frame, you take the stock photo out, dispose of the paper, and then you put your photo in there. The frame is the same, but the content is different because now the content is your family. So we could do the same thing with teaching these different methods and concepts in whether it be algebra 1, algebra 2, geometry, and it's like, oh, boom, I'm showing you how to do the skill. But now what you got to do as a youth or, even as an adult, you got to have the critical thinking ability to say, wait, okay, I see how this works. Now I can apply this to something that I care about. Kind of like when you teach somebody how to cook, right? You might show them how to cook Brussels sprouts. They might not like the Brussels sprouts, but you know what? I see how you sauteed them. I see how you do the seasoning in there. I'm gonna cook a vegetable that I do like, but I'm gonna use the same exact method that you used, right? Yep. We could do the same thing with mathematics if we're dealing with some culturally irrelevant content, right? So it's all about the framework, like how we frame it, right? But we got to get aggressive with, having the desire and having the, the concern and the want to make sure that our children understand these concepts. And I think we got to start to see the importance of mathematics, because for a lot of us, we marginalize math. We look at math as just this like necessary evil. It's just this like in high school, some school districts, you need 3 credits of math to graduate. Some school districts, you need, like somebody was telling me out in Cali, some school districts, you only need 2 credits of math to graduate. So that's 2 years of math and you're done. You can get a high school diploma. So a lot of us, like, we minimize the importance of mathematics and we just try to get through. But what ends up happening when we do that is we disqualify ourselves from a lot of opportunities and going forward, because now we're in the 21st century. We're getting even deeper into the 21st century. Now we're in competition with artificial intelligence, machine learning. We're not just competing with other groups of people. Now we really got to know more mathematics. We got to be more equipped for STEM opportunities, because there are going to be so many more of those opportunities available. And actually, I don't even necessarily like the acronym STEM. I prefer to say METS. And I've been in conversation with some people about this. Okay. I like METS better because METS is math, engineering, technology, and science, because what we got to understand is that math is really the gatekeeper and the foundation for the right. The technology and the science. What often happens, I think, when we hear STEM, we think we put math on par and on the same level with the science, technology, and engineering. And then I think what also ends up happening sometimes, unfortunately, is Somebody might get some grant money, start a STEM program, Saturday program, after school program, OST program, summer program, and they're focusing on STEM, the application of, STEM, which is great. I think we need more of that. Like, I'm all for that. But I want to see the STEM applications supplementing the fundamental instruction in mathematics, not replacing it. Because what oftentimes happens is people may say, well, these kids don't like math. These kids not good at math. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna show them how to build robots. We're gonna show them how to build bridges out of popsicle sticks. We're gonna use straws and do this and that and do engineering, which is great. They need that. But in the absence of knowing how to like sit down at a table, focus in, and solve a system of equations, that's a problem. Because what ends up happening is we setting them up for failure, because then it's like, okay, cool. I went to this Saturday program, went to this after school program. We was doing STEM, we was doing engineering. They introduced me to coding and, computer science and whatnot. That's great. Now I'm like, I might want to do that as a profession. But then as they're progressing through school, they're not taking the math seriously. They're just getting by, or they might be failing and not really learning it, right? Then it's time to go to college because they say, you know what, I want to be a computer scientist. Then it's like, whoa, but my math is too weak. And then you get up there, you say, well, I might want to be a mechanical engineer. I might want to be an electrical engineer, an industrial engineer. Oh, you mean I got to go up to Calc 3 and I got to do differential equations? No, I can't do that. I'm cool on that. Well, you ain't about to be no engineer then.
Well, you know what, brother Akil. I mean, you're saying a lot of things, man. I mean, I'm thinking about even students that I've come across in time, even contemporary times, having a desire to go into the engineering arena or having a desire to go into IT, computer science. They don't keep that same energy at times when they, look at that that trajectory or the courses they got to take, or they for the first semester check out some of them classes and see how the teacher's getting down and how the math goes, and they're like, I don't know, I might need to reimagine and revisit and rethink what my major needs to be. And then I'm also thinking about what you said in terms of, it's like when you have students who tend to have a negative impression interacting and engaging with math, then it's almost like you're then in an avoidant way, you're circumventing and going around it to go on to other stuff. What I'm hearing you say is, no, we got to deal with this math. We got to address it because it's too foundational. It's essential, and it's too critical. And every other things build off of that. So that's what I'm hearing. Is that what you're saying, Brother Akil? Is that what you're getting at?
That's exactly what I'm saying. We gotta stand up to the bully,
Okay.
and the parent, not just the students, but the parents too.
Okay.
Because and I think so that in terms of like thinking about this from like an African centered perspective.
Yep.
And in educating the whole family, right? And in the household and in the community, everybody being responsible, like I am, because we are, like everybody being able to take responsibility for the youth in the community. Like the elders in the community should be able to like sit down and like, listen, young brother, I can help you graph these sign functions. Let's do this trigonometry. But in order to do that, I got to know it, right? So, but I might not know it because maybe I never learned it, or maybe when I was in middle school or high school, I was uncomfortable with math, so I never tried to learn it, right? So I think a lot of us, we got to make a decision to say, look, you know what? I'm going to learn this once and for all because I want these young people in the community to learn this. And if for no other reason, so I could just help them, right? And then it's going to help you too, because you're going to have this sense of accomplishment, sense of, pride, and like, wow, like I overcame something, because and what a lot of people don't realize just about like, neuroscience is that the way you might have failed to understand something cognitively when you was 11 or 10 sitting in a middle school class, you're not going to have the same experience, more than likely in the most circumstances. You're not going to have the same experiences as a 30 or 40-year-old man or woman, because for one thing, you have a different frame of reference. You've been an adult, you've been in the world, you've had real life experiences. Your frontal lobe is fully developed now. When you was 10 or 11, that wasn't developed. So it's a lot of people probably think, well, it's going to be just as hard. I remember how difficult it was when I was 10. Oh, bro, you're 40. It's 30 years later. It's not going to be just as difficult, right? And then you might have a better teacher now, right? But you might understand it differently now, So we got to be able to do that so that we can provide that for our children, because our children deserve that.
Let me ask you this, Brother Akil. I hear what you're saying. Now, I don't necessarily. I think what you're saying is a lot. I mean, there's a lot to consider. I mean, one of the things that I am thinking about is trauma,
Mm-hmm.
and you said it already early in our conversation. I've seen it as well. Um, Even myself, coming up through school, um, math was not perhaps the subject that I was necessarily the most eager to deal with myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I know even students have said to me, they're not trying to go nowhere near math because um, it was either boring and it turned them away, or they weren't good at it, and that's where that productive struggle comes in, you know. But also, um, let's be honest, there with many of our students, um, there's already these extra layers um, uh, um, that are already on them, having to feeling like they have to overprove themselves at times, feeling that they're not as intelligent or not as adequate. I definitely know the value of having um, our schools through and through, our African centered schools, because in the K through 12 school system, when we talk about this, the big picture of it all, I've seen how so many of our students, they might be in classes where there's not many who look like them, and they
Mm-hmm.
feel invisible as it is. The teacher, might not be engaging with them in a certain kind of way. So I'm saying all that to say, I understand why some might be like at 30, 40, 50 or so on, they might they might not think about it like, oh, well, this my frontal lobe is a little bit more developed, and this is
Right.
different because their point of reference is associated with that negative experience,
Yeah.
and that is there. So, how can we work through that? I mean, how and if from a trauma informed perspective, I've even Brother Keel have had some students try to do some grounding exercises before taking the test. I've tried to have students do some breathing exercises before they take their exam, and do some things to settle them before they engage in math and other things. But like, what are some ways we can meet people where they're at, both parents, adults, and young folk, and help guide them along? Because, once again, I feel like math is so delicate. It's critical, but it's also so delicate, man. And I've seen the damage that it can do. I've even had one of my students who said before, she was like, math tears, those math tears hit different. And what I took from what she was saying was like, I struggle with classes and different things, this, that, and the third, but having them difficulties going through math, though, that math struggle is a little bit more intense. So what would you say that how do we support, our people through some of the challenges that they've had that have made it such an unfortunate experience when it doesn't really have to be?
Well, so a few things that come to mind. One thing is just having more conversations like this.
All right.
Having positive conversations around math. Because when you think about most of our people and the conversations that we have around math, like we don't really be at the cookout talking about how we excelled at math. Yeah, I took calculus in 12th grade and got an A. I got a 4. I scored a 4 in the AP Calc exam.
Right.
We don't hear them conversations.
I'm
But
about to get
those
that
people,
bag, right? And
yeah,
we
but
talk about it in certain ways, but not in other ways.
yeah, but those people exist, right? Like
Yeah.
we got people in our families that went to college and majored in engineering. It's almost like to the point where it's like, when you excel in math, it's almost like you feel bad because you feel like you almost have like survivor's remorse, right? You got survivor's remorse because like, yo, I did well in math and I excelled. Because the general conversation is about, most people didn't do well in math. And then this person links up with this other person that didn't do well in math. And then the two of them link up with somebody else that didn't do well in math. And then everybody's trauma bonding, right? And
Mm.
we're not having enough positive conversations around math or mathematical experiences, right? We often have so many negative conversations around our mathematical experiences. That brings me to something else. A lot of us feel that we're not quote unquote math people. And like I already gave you the definition of what a math person is, right? We
Uh,
have to redefine what that means, right? Um, but also we don't always understand when we're using algebra, right? We don't know it. right?
Okay,
We
so
don't
give
know.
us
We
some
don't.
examples, brother Q. Break it down. Because like we're programmed. Such and such is on this side of the equal sign, and these
Mhm.
numbers got to match. But how do we apply it to everyday living, brother? How, continue, brother. Continue with
That's and that those are very abstract examples, and that's part of the challenge with formal school settings is we get a lot of the abstract examples. But when you're crossing the street and a car's coming, you got to make a decision. Do I have enough time to get across the street? You're
right.
using the distance, rate, time formula,
Mm,
right? Because you're looking and seeing how far away is that car. Let me judge what is the R stands for the rate of speed. What's the rate of speed of that car? And do I have enough time? That's T, that's the variable T, to get across the street without getting hit by this car and dying.
mm,
Right? Same thing if you're driving. If you're driving, do I have enough? I'm at the intersection. It's oncoming traffic. I'm trying to make this left turn. I'm trying to bang this left. Do I have enough time without getting T-boned by that car that's coming? Right?
mm.
That's a mathematical computation we're doing. We don't think about it like that. We think of it, a lot of stuff that we think is just common sense is
Uh-huh.
really mathematical, proficiency. It's mathematical computation, right?
Mm.
You out of the party, you young brother, you out of the party. You see some nice looking young ladies. You got to decide, okay, who do I want to talk to? You know, we got to do some type of statistical analysis. Like, should I go for her? Should I go for her? Like what it was, what's my, what's my approach? It's all mathematical,
Yep,
like
and then
everything we're
you
doing.
get the digits, and then you get the math, right? You
Yeah. Yeah, so you got to make decisions. Okay, what part of town does she live in? What
for
part of town
sure.
does she live in? If
Right,
you're young, it's like, well, I don't got transportation, so okay, maybe I shouldn't try to talk to her because it's not likely we'll be able to hang out as much,
yeah,
right? This is all mathematics. Like you're taking information. It's like a function. You're inputting information into a function, and the output is a decision, right?
absolutely.
So a lot of times we're using mathematics and we don't even realize it. I mean, even think about our language a lot of times. Like when we talk about, something's not adding up, you think somebody's lying to you. Something ain't adding up,
Mm,
right?
mm,
That's a mathematical assessment. No, because
mm.
what you're saying is incongruent with what actually happened, or is inconsistent with the details of the situation,
Yep,
right? Or a lot of other things we say, let's settle our differences, right?
yep,
You settle your differences with somebody. Right now, it's like, imagine we quantify our positions, right? Like we have differences. My numerical quantification might be 85. Yours might be 65. We got a difference. The difference between 85 and 65 is 20. So we got to figure this out. We got to sit down as men, come together and figure out how to get on the same page. Either we come meet in the middle, or maybe like, you come up or I come down. We settle our differences and eliminate the difference, so our difference is zero. Just like when somebody say, what difference do it make? Right? If
yeah.
we go up the block and then make a right turn, or we make the right turn and then go up the block. Somebody say, what difference do it make? Because there's no difference in the length that we're traveling, and the amount of distance that we're traveling. So
Yeah,
oftentimes, we're using the mathematics, but nobody might not have told us that, oh, that's a mathematical concept right there,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And if
Yeah,
nobody told you that, then you're not going to think it's a mathematical concept. Similar to like culture, right? A lot of so black people, born and raised in the United States might have certain cultural practices, cultural norms, and then they might think, well, somebody may say, well, that's African, right? And they'd be like, no, that ain't African. But then how you know that's not African? You never studied African culture. You
mhm,
never studied African history. But then maybe you start studying some African culture. Maybe you meet some continental African people, and you realize, like, damn, y'all do the same thing we do,
mm,
right? So,
mm.
but you never knew. You were behaving as an African the whole time, but you never knew that because you never studied that.
Yep,
It's like the same concept. You've been doing the math, you've been doing the algebra, been dealing with the geometry, right? You've been dealing with all of that. You've been using the statistics, but you just never knew it. That's what it was, you know.
sure, for sure, for sure. And I'm sitting here thinking about language and how we have to be intentional about the words we use. In terms of a couple that came to my mind, like we don't die, we multiply, right? Things that we just say and don't always give thought to what we say, or um, we create division within our community.
Mm-hmm.
There's strength in numbers, right? There's just different things that we say, and there's probably so many more when you think about it. But no, I mean, I like how you broke that down and how we made it applicable. I think that's really, really critical. I would almost argue with any type of study that we are doing, any discipline, any field, how does it relate to us?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, a lot of teachers get turned off at that question because it might be perceived as being dismissive or disrespectful. What has got to do with me? But I think there is a lot of merit and validity to that question.
Yeah. You gotta you as a teacher, you gotta do, what I did, you gotta get out your feelings. Because
Ah,
because early in my career, when a kid would be like, man, why I gotta learn this? When I'm gonna use this in life? I used to be in my feelings.
okay.
I should be all sensitive about that. like, bro, who you talking to, man? But
Yeah.
the thing is, that's an excellent question though, right? So if you're able to navigate through and not be overly emotional about it,
Mhm.
that's an excellent question. That's one of the best questions that a student will ask. And what we have to realize as educators is that there are multiple responses to that question. And what's an answer for one student might not be the same answer for another student. I think problem solving is key for everybody. I think that's an answer for everybody. But oftentimes that response, it's going to help you with problem solving. That seems abstract. A child may not understand that. Or a child might be like, well, I don't have no problems.
Absolutely.
My only problem right now in my life might be I got a PS4 and I want a PS5. Right. So how's math gonna help me get this PS5? Right.
Absolutely.
But they don't understand that their parents might have a problem, have a challenge with, getting the resources to be able to get them that PS5. Right.
Yeah.
But that's beyond their experience. Right. But it's different answers to that question. But it's a very critical question. When are they going to use it? And I think part of it is because a lot of the things that I say about mathematics in year 20 of teaching, being a math teacher, I wasn't even thinking about in year 1 or year 2 or year 3, maybe even year 8. I might not have been thinking about these things. And you gotta really know the subject. You gotta really have some serious content mastery. You gotta have really been in the trenches and did your 10,000 hours of trigonometry, your 10,000 hours of algebra 1 problems, and done them so much where it's you start to recognize the connection. So it's with me, what has happened is, over the years is, I'm doing my lesson plans for my algebra 1 class, my algebra 2 class, or what have you. But at the same time, I'm reading, I don't know, Du Bois' Souls of Black Folk. And then I'm like, damn, the same thing Du Bois is saying in this essay about, on Booker T. Washington. I was just, thinking about that when I was, going over, writing out these steps for how to solve systems of equations using the elimination method. Or when I'm doing this lesson for radical equations, I'm thinking about Bob Moses, rest in peace to Bob Moses, but Bob Moses and Charles Cobb's book, Radical Equations, right? And then I'm thinking about how do you solve a radical equation? Well, it's 2 basic steps. You first isolate the radical expression, and then you eliminate the radical. And then I start thinking that's like COINTELPRO. Isn't that what the U.S. government does? What oppressive regimes do? They want to isolate the radicals and the revolutionaries from the community, and then they attempt to eliminate the radicals from the community by either assassination or incarceration for the rest of their life. Like Mumia right here in Philly, he's probably never getting out of jail. I hope he does, but he might never. Right? Originally, he got the death penalty, but then the DA converted that to a life sentence. Right? So, but when you're thinking about the math lesson, there's so many overlaps in terms of and this is part of essentially where a lot of where hystematics comes from, the idea of it. I think about Malcolm X, one of his speeches, him talking about the cycle of poverty, talking about how, many of us are born into poor communities. You're born into a poor community, and then you attend the schools in the poor community where you receive low quality education. And then after you receive the low quality education and matriculate through that school system, then you only qualify for low paying jobs, which means you still have to live in that poor community. And you're right back where you started at when you was born 18 years ago. And that's a circle. That cycle represents a circle. So then I'm thinking about geometry. I'm thinking about, well, what if instead of just going into this lesson on, all right, we about to figure out what the area of a circle is. I'm going to tell them what pi is. I'm going to tell them the formula, pi r squared. Well, we're going to find the circumference of a circle, which is basically the perimeter. But circles are so special. They got their own name for a perimeter, which is circumference, right? Let's talk about Malcolm X first. Let's talk about him first, and then start talking about, how to measure the area of a circle and even what that means. What does area even mean? Because a lot of us, even a lot of teachers out there, can't tell a student what area actually means. We know the formula. We can split formulas out for days, but we don't understand the concepts. I say that from experience because I was one of them teachers early on. I didn't know what area really meant. I knew the formula though. Pi r squared. I can tell you that all day. R is the radius. I know how to use exponents. I know what pi is, 3.14. I throw the numbers in there all day long. But did I know what area is? Area is the number of squares, right, that fit inside that shape, right? Whether they be, and a square has 4 equal sides. So the area of a square is 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, 1 inch by 1 inch, 1 foot by 1 foot, 1 yard by 1 yard. That's what area is. It represents the space inside, the number of equivalent squares inside of any type of shape. Could be a triangle, could be a circle, rectangle, trapezoid, whatever, right? But those things are important, and also those are the questions that our children get asked on standardized tests. So this is why standardized tests become a problem, because even for the students that are good at math and they're getting A's and B's, but they only know they like a lot like how I was when I was a student. They know algorithms, they know formulas, but they don't know the concepts. So then they get jammed up on the standardized tests, and then this is what happens. So then they're not able to really advance like they should be able to, right? Because they're not learning it conceptually. But that requires teachers being trained differently and teachers having more of a content mastery, like early on. And often on the undergraduate level, there's no room for that. They're not getting that. They're not getting that type of training. So a lot of that has to be autodidactic. A lot of the education majors have to be autodidactic. And we also have to compete with this issue of people that want to be teachers. They're well-meaning. They want to work with children. They want to help the community, but they have a fear of math. They don't like math. So they're like, well, and then they think they arrive at this conclusion that, well, you know what? I'm going to just teach first grade, or I'm going to teach kindergarten. I'm going to teach second grade. And then they say, well, that way I don't got to worry about all the math. And I tell them like, nah, like in my math methods class, I'm like, nah, that's fallacious reasoning. And I'm going to tell you why. Because just like as a parent, I got 3 children. My youngest, Kwame, he's 5. He'll be 6 in May. As I raise Kwame, right, I'm not raising him just so he can be a functioning 5-year-old. I'm raising him with the thought that one day he's going to be a 25-year-old man. So what I'd say to him, and what I attempt to pour into him, and how I attempt to develop him, I'm thinking long term. Right? It's like the quarterback. The quarterback is not throwing the ball when the ball is hiked. The wide receiver's at the line of scrimmage just like he is. The quarterback's not throwing it to the line of scrimmage. He's throwing it 40 yards downfield, where he's supposed to end up at when he runs the route. Right?
Absolutely.
So if you're the teacher and you're like, well, I don't know higher level math. I don't care about higher level math. I don't really like math that much. My job is just to teach them how to count, teach them how to maybe do 1 + 1 and, up to 10 or whatever. That's cool, but not really, because one day that child's you should be thinking one day that child's going to be in a calculus class. One day that child's going to be in an algebra 1 class, algebra 2 class, the geometry class. So you at least want to have enough understanding and grasp of the material and the content so you can at least introduce just some of those ideas to the 6-year-old and to the 5-year-old and the 7-year-old. Just some of the ideas, at least at a minimum, right? And also it's going to influence how you teach those fundamental lessons, right? Because understand it, because like me and you are grown men with children. So as we raise children, we're raising them with the understanding of what it means to be an adult in the United States of America, right? So that's very different. That would look very different if we didn't know what it was like to be adults in the United States of America. Our parenting would be different. So your teaching is going to be different too. So again, a lot of teachers that end up responsible for teaching math, they got to learn more math. They got to learn more math.
Well, so one of the things that I think is so important is there has to be a continual work ethic to cultivate and develop ourselves at the craft or the vocation that we decide. In this case, as an educator, as a math teacher, as a math educator, I would even say math scholar, there has to be a continual, perpetual development. In order to be a student, you got to be a teacher. We're always developing. I mean, in order to be a teacher, you got to be a student. Not sure if I said that right, but we're always learning. We're always developing ourselves. One of the things to take it back to the part of the conversation we were talking about, just questioning our young folks. I think it's so important, and I'm just saying, I won't even say young folk. I'll say people in general, because you could be a student of any age. That inquiry and thinking about the why, the how, critical thinking. We got to continue to ask questions.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, our development is stunted, and our growth and our learning is stunted because we're not asking questions. In fact, a lot of times we know too much. We know too much. We think we know more than the teacher. And to your point, because of AI, because of you, now they call it YouTube University or whatever, or because Google, whatever, it almost in many ways has made the traditional teachers and scholars exempt or non-credible, because I ain't gotta listen to what you say. I can just hop on. In fact, I'm gonna just go on to Instagram, look at that clip, and that'll give me all the information that I need. I got students that say this stuff all the time. But what I'm saying is, yeah, we got to get back to some of those fundamentals. We got to get back to some of those basics. And from an African-centered perspective as well, education is reciprocal, brother Akil. So,
Oh, yeah.
so the thing is, students are supposed to crack us in the head and hit us with some of them questions that make us rethink and say, ho, ho, ho. Kwame just hit me with a question. I gotta actually reassess my theories. I gotta reevaluate my my hypothesis. I gotta rethink what I'm putting out there. We gotta keep ourselves sharp. And I think that's the beauty of education, not just memorization, rote memorization, not just surface level stuff, but it has to be an ongoing, critical, thought-provoking, engaging, and interaction with the student and the teacher. That's the sweet stuff. That's the sweet spot right there. We got to have that. And so I love what you're saying. And so let me say this as time is going on. We got a little bit more time left, but I'm loving the conversation, my brother. Give us some resources. Give us the I know you got some books and some information in that regard. I know you got some stuff online. You got the channel jumping off. We're going to continue the conversation, but also for those tuning in, give us some of the resources and give us some of the stuff where people can tap into even after our conversation. Give some of that up too, good brother.
Yeah, definitely, because I'm definitely a major advocate of when you offer the constructive criticism, you have to pair it with a resource, right?
Yes, sir.
We gotta have resources, because what it often ends up being construed at or interpreted as is just condescension. It's just condescension for the sake of condescension. So I'm all about providing resources. So
Sure.
You mentioned the YouTube channel. So when I'm talking, whether it's a parent that wants to help their children with their math homework, or help their children get over their fears or anxiety around math, or prevent them from the anxiety from ever setting in, because that's the best thing you can do. Is it's kind of like, as parents, when you understand the true history of the United States, so true history of Western society, in your household, you're having conversations with your children about the real history. And even if your child goes to a public or a charter school, or you're in a private school that, Black people don't control, where they're going to be lied to, right? But it's like you kind of give them this armor and you prepare them, you protect them against the lies. So like when your child is sitting in the social studies class in 5th grade or 4th grade or 6th grade, and the teacher's going to tell them that lie about Christopher Columbus, or, about World War I. It's like, why did World War I start? Oh, because Archduke Ferdinand got assassinated or whatever. And it's like, nah, but in reality, they was fighting over the resources on the continent of Africa. But they're going to leave that part out of the story, because they always try to leave out Africans, right? So your child is already going to know that. So when they sit in their class, they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. But I got to say that to write this to get the A on the test. Okay, cool, whatever. But I already know the truth, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want your children to already know the math and be equipped that way, then this is what I created the YouTube channel for. So the All This Math, just like the sweatshirt, All This Math, like the All This Math YouTube channel. right? I got over 850 videos in different topics in math, from arithmetic up to calculus 1. I got some statistics on there, some pre-calculus, some algebra 2, algebra 1, geometry, pre-algebra. I got just a lot of stuff on there, just a wealth of video content. And the hystematics approach is present because I infuse a lot of the videos, most of them, with Black history lessons. You know, you might pull up one of my videos. I might have one of my Thomas Sankara t-shirt on, and you might not have never heard of Thomas Sankara, but you're gonna learn today. You're gonna learn who Thomas Sankara was, one of my heroes, right? Revolutionary brother, was the leader, you know, one of the leaders in the Burkinabe Revolution in modern day Burkina Faso. Assassinated by the French because he was just that thorough, right? In 1987, and so we're gonna talk a little bit about Thomas Sankara in that video right there, exactly. How'd you know that? How was you able to pull that up so quick? That's pretty fly. But anyway, so we're gonna talk about Thomas Sankara at first, and then we're gonna get into the topic at hand. We might be solving some equations using quadratic formula like this video. We're doing addition with 3-digit numbers. You know, we might do that. So you're gonna get that because it's modeled after how my classrooms are. Like in my classrooms, my students were inevitably always like, Mr. Parker, you should have been an African American history teacher, and I would be honored when they would say that, because that means that they were paying attention, or they were recognizing that, this was something different. This space is a different space, because they're not used to learning about, the three different books that Dr. King wrote in a math class. They're not used to like hearing about Asada Shakur, and they might not never heard of Asada Shakur, but they definitely never heard of it in a math class before, right? That's not what they used to, right? But that's what this space is about. So the YouTube channel is what that space is about, and also I'm modeling for parents, because a lot of my content, I got several videos with my daughter Asada, and because what I do is I'm like, it's kind of like this, like, these are things that I teach my children anyway, right? I'm just sharing them with the community.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's pretty much what it is. Like, because think about what happens when you meet a child, any of us. Yeah, they should go right there.
Here we
go. Think about what happens when you meet a child and you find out this child's parent is a math teacher. What is the first thing that comes to mind? Oh, you must be real good at math, right? And a lot of us are. Like, my daughter is a stellar math student. Right, always has been. Naseem up in Morgan State, his sophomore year, he's a great math student. Kwame already is a great math student, but that's because they've been trained, right? So again, I want to emphasize that my children are intelligent, but they know math because they've been trained and developed in a certain way. It's not as if they were born with a math gene, right? Many of us, if we had been taught, we would be excelling in math also. There's this kind of idea that I had to be born this way in order to be able to understand math and excel in math. Not necessarily. Now, you might have had to put in more work than other people, but that's natural. I went to high school with people that I had to study more than to understand it just as well as they did. That's just the way it is.
Me too.
But the thing is, you just got to put the work in, and it's different amounts of work for different people. But what I'm doing with featuring my daughter and featuring my youngest son Kwame is I'm modeling, like, okay, fathers, mothers, like, I'm a math teacher, I'm a math professor, but I'm a father first and foremost. And my responsibility to my children is to make sure they're equipped. And I understand the importance of mathematics, and I see it as a tool for liberation. And I see it as a tool for, like I said earlier, developing problem solving ability, developing critical thinking ability, developing analytical reasoning ability, all things that my children must have. And I'm not going to leave it up to nobody else to give it to them. So I'm gonna give it to them. So I'm like, we're gonna put this on the internet. I'm gonna let you see it being done. And also, you're gonna see a Black man teaching math, because that's another thing too that I shouldn't take as for granted, but I do sometimes. A lot of our children don't see Black people doing math. They don't see Black people teaching math, and so as a result, that contributes to this false idea that Black people don't do math. We understand that Black people play basketball, Black people play football, Black people rap, Black people sing, Black people dance, Black people tell jokes and are comedians. Black people look cool, right? But we don't think that Black people do math, right? So I'm also pushing back against that, because I'm like, nah, I'm gonna let you know, like, no, Black people do math. We always have, but there's been this kind of this marketing of the subject so that we won't really focus in on it. And even a lot of us in our community that do the math, they're not seen as representative of our community. They're seen as, like in statistics, they're seen as outliers. Like, oh, you good at math. Oh, you different. You one of them, right? No, this is what we do. Like historically, we've always done this.
Absolutely.
In ancient Kemet, we was doing this.
Absolutely.
Right? We developed this. Like the Greeks came to, like Nas said on Nas's like Greeks in Egypt learning something deep from their teachers. The Greeks came, Pythagoras, they popped out in ancient Kemet so they could learn what we was already doing. Yep. Right. So this is something that we've always done, right? We just don't know that it's what we've always done. We know what we've been given based from the mainstream media. They tell us, oh, we only been doing this, we only been doing that, but no, we've been doing that too. Right. So it's just, like I said, it's like I think part of the solution is just having more conversations like this, and then like featuring and highlighting like the Black engineers and, the people that like took calculus 3 and took differential equations and, the Black folks that, have, PhDs in math and have taught people in, have taught many math PhDs, like the late Dr. Abdul Alim Shabazz, who is responsible for training more Black math PhDs in this country than anybody else. Or some of the people that are featured in the recent documentary that dropped last month, Journeys of Black Mathematicians. They talk about all these Black mathematicians and, these people that were educating Black people in HBCUs and beyond, and even now teaching on a collegiate level. And also, like when I think of math exemplars, I don't only think of those people with the formal training in mathematics, whether it be Evelyn Granville Boyd or Albert Frank Cox or Kelly Miller or all these types of people. I think of people like Sundiata Acoli or Amilcar Cabral or even Du Bois. Sundiata Acoli earned a math degree from Prairie View A&M University, historically Black college in Houston, Texas. Right. Sundiata Acoli ended up in the Black Liberation Army with Assata Shakur. He was on the New Jersey Turnpike along with Assata Shakur and Zaid Malik Shakur back in 1973 when they attempted to assassinate them. Right. Unfortunately, Zaid Malik Shakur was assassinated. Of course, Assata was incarcerated. Sundiata Acoli was assassinated. He was a political prisoner for 40 plus years. He was released last year. Assata Shakur, we know she escaped from prison and she's been in Cuba, doing what she needs to do, right? But that brother was a mathematician. He worked for NASA, right? So I think it's important for our young people to learn about that, because what that says to me, even as a math teacher, is that wait a minute, when people decide to take that revolutionary route, right, instead of trying to be more assimilationist or integrationist into the society, maybe they realize something from a mathematical standpoint that, this course of action actually makes more sense, right? Like Amilcar Cabral. Cabral was in the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau, right? They thought what the Portuguese thought they was going to do was what they do with a lot of us, right? They send us to the so-called good schools, get us trained, right? And then we're supposed to come back, like Amos Wilson said, and be the black face of white power, right? They sent Cabral to Portugal to get educated. He got a degree in agricultural engineering. And then while he's studying agricultural engineering, he understands, wow, it's all about the land. The land, like Malcolm said, revolution is about land. So then he goes back to Guinea-Bissau and he's like, nah, we got to get our land back. So then he gets involved with PAIGC, he's a revolutionary, right? Fights against the Portuguese, right? I think about Du Bois. Du Bois, when we think of Du Bois most often as a historian, maybe a sociologist, but
right.
How do you do serious sociology? How do you do serious historical analysis without mathematics? When Du Bois writes the Philadelphia Negro,
yes, sir. I was just about to say that. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, he's in South Philly, which was which at that time in 1898, late 19th century, Philadelphia has the largest concentration of black folks, right? At the time, he's got in the book, he's got charts, he's got graphs, he's got averages, he's got standard deviations, he's got all this and that, right? No doubt. He's doing the math. Du Bois is a mathematician, right?
Very scientific work.
Exactly, right? And then when you just and even the mere thought of just identifying contradictions, just in doing analysis, right? Whether we're historians or political scientists or psychologists, we're doing analysis, right? Again, what's one of the purposes of math that I state? Developing our analytical reasoning ability. So in order to have a sound analysis, and even like you mentioned, like in the classroom, it's a bi-directional situation. So one of your students might challenge you, and you may realize, man, I got to refine my analysis. I never thought about that. You just put me on to something, right? So again, it's about analysis. So there's analysis in all of these subjects, and the math is connected to the analysis. The math develops our analytical ability. So therefore, the math is connected to the history. The math is connected to the psychology, the sociology, the political science. The math is connected to everything, right?
Absolutely.
But the way math is marketed, it's like, no, that's over there. That's for them. That don't got nothing to do with that, right? But I'm like, no, because it makes it make sense, because then you start to see the contradictions.
Yeah,
You know, you start to see it. Like, you know, it's like when I was in school, I remember been in elementary school and middle school, I remember learning about the Civil War, and I remember thinking, okay, so they kind of oversimplify the situation and say, okay, well, you got the Union, you got the Confederates, right? But so that means you got the good white people up north and the bad white people down south, right? It's just that simple. That's just what it is, right? But then years later, you realize, wait, okay, so why was there racism up north, right? Why were there lynchings up north too? No, that's a contradiction.
Right.
Mathematically, that doesn't make sense. That equation does not balance out. We can't say, oh, well, it was good. The good white folks was up north and the bad white folks was down south. Because what is it? Matter of fact, Sister Crystal is logged in from Ashe Academy. Going down there to Mississippi with them good folks, a few years ago, they educated me about the Devil's Punch Bowl. The Devil's Punch Bowl was a spot in Mississippi where what was it like thousands of black folks was murdered, right, by Union soldiers, So again, when I'm in elementary school or middle school and I'm learning about the Civil War, and they're putting forth this idea that, oh well, you know, it's really this simple. You know, the Confederates, they was the bad white people, you know, they down south, and the good white people, they was up north. End of story. Now let's talk about these different battles, right? Let me give a little bit of information about this battle over here, Gettysburg and Antietam is all bloody and everything and all that. But you know, that's all you got to know, right? Nah, right? But thinking about things mathematically helps you to see, like, nah, something ain't adding up. Nah, this ain't adding up.
But you know what though, brother Akil, and definitely, I see we're gonna have to do a part 2 for sure, because you're dropping so many heavy nuggets and so many heavy jewels. I know there's so much more we could talk about. I know we're getting to the point where we probably got to wrap things up, but that foundation is so critical, because what you're speaking to is when that foundation is strong, then you could be able to go into any space and you can be able to navigate that space, and you can be able to think critically. You can be able to analyze things on a different level. You can even be able to test the teacher. And oftentimes when we talk about test the teacher, it's a negative connotation, like you trying to get out of place and get out of line. But if students get tested, why can't a teacher get tested too? You know, just like you're saying. So that foundation, it's critical. I think about like a person like a Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who, you know, yes, went to Harvard and got his, you know, his degree in history and all that kind of stuff. But he went and challenged the professor about African history and said, no, it is a field that is worthwhile studying, and Africans have done stuff. Let me run it down for you. So equipping our students, our young folk, with the confidence and that courage that stems from that knowledge and that foundation, to be unapologetic and going into their spaces and being able to say, I got something to say about that as well. I have some questions. Let's engage. Let's engage in this critical discussion. So I think that is critical and that's essential.
Can I say something? Can I say something, brother? Because I wanted to because I was reminded of the Devil's Punch Bowl, and I want to pay homage to those ancestors.
Okay.
And there were 20,000, freedmen and freedwomen.
Okay.
And it was in the Devil's Punch Bowl was in Natchez, Mississippi, where I believe Richard Wright was from. Right.
Yep.
And it was a concentration camp essentially. It was essentially a concentration camp in the 1860s. and these brothers and sisters were murdered, but murdered by the Union Army, right? So, but you would never think that. You would think, oh, well, the bad white folks in the Confederacy did that. It's like, no, because sometimes what did Dr. Clark, what does Dr. Clark say? Sometimes you got two bad guys fighting against each other. But again, they get us in this. But again, the analysis comes into play, because if you do analysis, you realize that that's even a possibility. If you lack an analytical ability, you get caught up in this Hollywood movie mentality where you're like, oh, it's got to be a good guy and a bad guy. No, sometimes it's two bad guys. Sometimes it's two good guys, right? There's just a conflict, right? But we got to be able to assess the situation and look at it appropriately and know what we're really dealing with, right?
I agree with that. And I would even also say, brother, that, and this is probably for some going to sound crazy, but there's so much in education, like this fixation on being right, getting the right answer. And I would say, okay, sure, you want to arrive at an accurate conclusion, but I think oftentimes there's not enough emphasis on it being okay to not be right. And what I mean by that is we should always be trying to further clarify our analysis, or there's always more to uncover. There's always more to learn. What I'm thinking today, and shout out to Brother Ja Logic behind the scenes, my brother's in his bag today. Shout out to the graphics and the imagery. Definitely appreciate what he's doing with that. But yeah, like we got to continue to reassess what we think we know. And that is very important. So yeah, so what Brother Akil is saying, we have some images and some graphics there that speak to when I look at those images and stuff, they can be challenging and they can be harsh, but I also look at what we've been through and I see resilience in that.
We still here.
We still
here. Like you're a black man, I'm a black man. We still here existing. Like you would think that we'd be extinct.
Absolutely.
From this, but that's a testament to who we are, and that gives me a lot of optimism.
Absolutely.
Right? The fact that we still here, like they can't kill us and we won't die.
Absolutely. And I look at how we've had them shook, because you look and see all of the things that have tried to happen in terms of denying aspects of education, politically doing things, economically doing things, because what is it that we are doing? How are we moving and shaking and doing? What are we doing that's creating that sense of anxiety? Or I think there's this notion called the replacement theory. It was this thing where even after emancipation, here we come setting up schools, hospitals, businesses, communities, and different things like that. Oh, so they doing their thing. We got to get them out of here. Send them on up out of here. Get them out of the way so they're not creating competition. Right. So the way I look at it, it's in terms of reframing that is we got to just continue to stay on the path that our ancestors have given us. We gonna be all right.
Right. Another contradiction you just reminded me of when we read the autobiography of Malcolm X. We find out about how his father was murdered and why his father was murdered by a Klan. You would think that, his father was a Garveyite, right? What is Garvey preaching? What is Garvey teaching our people to be independent? Like I don't want nothing from that white man. We just want to be left alone. We want to be over here to do our thing. You would think that based on the rhetoric of these right wing, conservative, so-called conservative Klansmen in the early 1900s, that they would like that, they would appreciate that. But what happens? They still kill that man, because what we learn is no, this is economic. Because once we become independent, once we really become independent, then it's like, oh, we're not going to your grocery store no more. No, we're not going to spend our money with you no more. So really, pardon my expression, but they full of shit. And thinking mathematically allows you to see, like, oh, so I thought y'all wanted us to do that. Nah, y'all don't want us to do that, because y'all don't really want us to really stay away from y'all. Y'all want us to come around and spend our money with y'all though, right? So much so that this man is preaching independence, and you end up murdering this man, right? So it's just things like that. Like the way I read history is informed by my mathematical understanding. Right, looking at things as equations, like, okay, this is the right side should match up with the left side. Like this isn't and something's not working. Or maybe it's if it's an inequality, okay, all right, this is greater than this, or this is less than this, or or this is greater than or equal to this, or this is less than or equal to this, right? So, and those are the math has really like informed my understanding of history and allowed me to like get a better quantitative understanding of it too. So yeah, but I think I went off on a tangent because I was talking about the YouTube channel, and I meant to mention the book also. So the book is a resource for parents.
Sure.
How to use all this math, volume 1 is a resource for parents, because I'm a person that's immersed in math, right? Every day, all day, every day, right? But I understand everybody's not immersed in math. So I recognize things in everyday life that most people might not recognize, right? It's just a virtue of just being immersed in the mathematics. But what I did in How to Use All This Math, volume 1, is I identified everyday activities that can be utilized as teachable moments in arithmetic, algebra, and geometry, whether it's something that you might be able to do when you're riding in the car with your children, something you might do when you're in the grocery store, when you're just walking down the block, when you're riding on the bus, when you're in the kitchen, just different things. And if we do these things on a daily basis, your children are getting their reps in, as just like in sports. They're getting their reps in, they're practicing, and then it's a great way to prevent them from ever developing the math phobia or the math anxiety, because then when they get to school, they're going to see these skills in school. They're going to be introduced to them when they get in school. But the beauty of it is that they will have already seen them.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, I know how to do unit conversions. We do this in the house all the time. Yep. Or I know how to like convert from Fahrenheit temperature to Celsius temperature. Every time we get in the car, I convert the temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius or Celsius to Fahrenheit. I even know the formula by heart, right? Just those types of things. So, and then our households become more mathematically inclined, right? And then we start having more mathematical conversations, and our children start thinking about things from a mathematical standpoint. So we start to, be more critical, and then we start to see, our children start to see things that people are saying on social media, and they become more media literate, because they're like, that don't even make sense. You know what he just said? Like, that don't even make sense. Or then it's like, and then they begin to be able to start to challenge a lot of the anti-blackness and the so-called black pathology that they see, where it's like you have these outliers or these anomalies that become representative, that become treated as norms in our community. But statistically, it's inaccurate. It's statistically absurd, right? To say, okay, well, this black person did something unfortunate. Oh, that's just what black people do. No, that's not what black people do. And that's what this black person did. But then let's not even get into the conversation of, well, what are the conditions and the systemic and structural conditions that caused and motivated and socialized that black person to think that shiftless and unfortunate behavior was appropriate. Absolutely. That's even another conversation.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
Get into the root of the problem. But yeah, just how to use all this math, volume 1, developing an environment in your household whenever you're spending your time with your children, so that they can start to have you can start to just have mathematical conversation, and it's not something that's marginalized, and it's definitely not something that what we want as a community is this. We do not want for our children to believe, and even as parents to believe, that math is the domain of the school, right? The exclusive domain of the school. Like, you know what? If you want to practice math, you want to think about math, you want to do math, you do that in school. Yep. Maybe you do some homework at home, but you mainly learn math in school. Nah, we need to be the primary. We have to be. This is imperative.
Every household has to be a learning center. Absolutely. Yeah,
it's got to be. We got to be the primary educators. And that's easier said than done, but it still can be done. Absolutely. It's not going to be easy, but we got to do it regardless. Yeah. A lot of things we do aren't easy. But we do them anyway because we got to do them.
Absolutely. You know what? With that being said, we're gonna go ahead and cut this one right where you said that, my brother, because I think that was powerful, and I think that's a great point to I'll say pause on, because definitely we got to continue the conversation. Listen, those tuning in, much love. Appreciate y'all tuning in. This is Brother Marcus Sankofanix with Brother Akil Parker from All This Math, History Heals Consulting. For anybody who needs professional development, workshops, lectures, talks, healing groups, whatever the case may be, historyhealsconsulting.com. This is this is season 2 So hop on YouTube and see the rest of our episodes of those that we've had. And go to historyhealsconsultant.com to see all the layout of the services and things that are offered. Brother Akil, I just want to say thank you once again, good brother, for being on the show, for blessing us with what you do. I see, we got the graphics and stuff back up again, showing what you do and the wonderful work that you're doing. So keep on pushing, keep on doing your thing, good brother. I'm gonna definitely give Pops a call as well too.
Yeah.
Well, for sure. But
Yeah.
I know that our paths will cross again as they already have. So I know that that's definitely going to be the case. And I definitely am looking to even share with my family and my little princess some of the things that you also were speaking to as well too. So appreciate you, good brother. Did you have any final thoughts as we wrap it up and close it? A quote, any nugget, real quick, briefly that you wanted to drop before we wrap it up for the day, good brother? What you got for us?
Math is a tool for liberation. Let's change our outlook on mathematics generally, and let's commit to doing the work of reconditioning ourselves to think about math in a more positive way and as a tool and something that we should run towards instead of something that we should run from. And and there are resources available. Come to my YouTube channel. You got to get some correct answers. That's the thing. A lot of us don't like math because in school we didn't get a lot of correct answers. That's a bad feeling. I get it. There were times when I had my rough patches in my K through 12 experience. It's not a good feeling. But come to my channel, and now there's no time pressure, right? You're just learning. We're just learning. There's no test on Friday. There's no standardized test you got to worry about. No, you're just learning. You take your time. It's like when you're reading a book. You're reading a book because you just want to learn about something. It's not like you're in college. You got to cram and finish these 18 chapters in 2 weeks. No, we're not doing that. We're just learning. We're studying at our own pace. So
I love it.
Keep that in mind too.
I love it, my brother. Man, appreciate the work you're doing. I've even myself learned a lot about the work you do. I mean, I knew the work that you did, but we went even deeper today. So appreciate the work you're doing, my brother. I'm inspired by you. So make sure y'all like and subscribe what we got going on over here with this platform, and also support brother Akil and the work that he's doing as well too. We're going to go ahead and get up off of here. So shout out to those tuning in, whether you was tuning in through Facebook, whether you hopped on through YouTube or whatever the case is. But this is not the only conversation and not the only episode. We have all the other episodes lined up on YouTube. So check it out. History Heals Talk series. Catch y'all next time. We out. Peace.
Peace.